Hi, my name is George Shaler, and I'm the board president of the Justice Information Resource Network. This interview is part of JIRN's series titled Justice Insights: Conversations with the SACs. I'm here today with Scott Wolfe and Jed Knode, who, along with Travis Carter from the Michigan SAC, were recently awarded JIRN's Douglas Yearwood Prize for its Driving While Broke: The Role of Class Signals in Police Discretion, that we will learn more about in a moment. Before we get started, I'd like Scott and Jed to introduce themselves. Scott and Jed, please let the viewers know your respective roles with the Michigan SAC.
Thanks, George. Yeah, my name is Scott Wolfe. I'm a professor here at Michigan State University School of Criminal Justice, and in that capacity, I serve as the director of Michigan's SAC, which we refer to as the Michigan Justice Statistics Center.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. My name is Jed Knode. I am a doctoral candidate also in the School of Criminal Justice at MSU, and I am a graduate research fellow with the SAC.
Great. So, Scott and Jed, can you describe briefly what was the impetus behind this project? Like, what was the research problem, policy question, or programmatic need that you were trying to address with this study?
Sure, no problem, George. Yeah, so the motivation behind this is, racial disparities in criminal justice outcomes is a big topic of conversation in academic research and policy circles. It's been a big thing we've talked about for a long time. In a policing context, our team has been working with the Michigan State Police over the past few years, trying to give them a better idea of the extent to which racial disparities exist in their traffic stops, and then try to dive deeper to maybe find solutions to that. As part of that process, our team has kind of expanded our portfolio of looking at racial disparities and led to this project that we're talking about today. A lot of prior work focuses almost exclusively on the extent to which disparities exist, okay? And little is done in trying to understand what some of the other predictors of disparate outcomes may be. We ran into a lot of anecdotal feedback from officers of various agencies, including at MSP. It kind of said, well, we're not racist. We're not using race as the reason why we conduct traffic stops, but indeed we might use other factors like the style of car, cars out of place, lower socioeconomic status cars, as a kind of an indicator that the person might be holding illegal contraband, such as drugs or weapons on them. And so we took that the next, to the research question. Let's examine whether, to what extent value of vehicle is an indicator of social class, and then predicting outcomes related to traffic stops.
Okay. So can you give me a sense of or a brief overview of the methods you used, the data you collected, your approach?
Absolutely. So as the kind of quick and dirty overview, we analyzed over 550,000 traffic stops at our partnering agency in 2022 and 2023 to see, again, as Scott said, whether vehicle values affected search decisions and contraband recovery. And we estimated those vehicle values based on their make, model, and year. The thing is, the value of vehicles isn't random, and this is a problem if we want good evidence because that doesn't make for good experimental conditions. So because of this, we use something called generalized propensity score matching, which essentially lets us account for a bunch of other variables that might influence vehicle value so that the chance of an observation being assigned a specific vehicle value is as close to random as possible. And that way we're looking at how vehicle value by itself impacts those search decisions and contraband recovery.
Thank you, Jed. So what were some of the key findings from your report?
Absolutely. So first off, the lower a vehicle's value, the more likely it was to be searched. And this relationship was especially strong for consent searches as opposed to probable cause searches, because we only wanted to look at searches where an officer had some role in the decision-making process of those searches. However, searching lower value vehicles actually led to lower likelihoods of contraband recovery. In other words, these searches were less efficient, which suggests that that intuition of lower value vehicles being more suspicious might have been inaccurate. Searches were also more frequent if lower value vehicles were out of place, as Scott kind of talked about, such as when they were in higher income areas than when they were in lower income areas. And Importantly, while vehicle value had the greatest impact on searches of white drivers, Black and Hispanic drivers were still more likely to be searched overall, even when accounting for that. And the highest signaling Black drivers were actually more likely to be searched than the lowest signaling white drivers. And finally, it's important to note that just over 1% of consent searches resulted in any kind of contraband recovery. And while it was much better for probable cause searches, around 11%, it's still very low, especially considering what probable cause search you expect to find there. So, given how searches appear to disproportionately harm poor and non-white communities while weakening police legitimacy, that might be a huge problem.
So, what are the policy implications or practice applications that come from this study?
Yeah, I think one at the highest level, one of the things we come away with, especially because we're talking about searches and whether contraband is found. I mean, that's the goal of the search after a traffic stop is conducted. It really calls into question whether the juice is worth the squeeze, right? With such low contraband recovery rates, like Jed's talking about, it calls into question whether they're efficient, and then the collateral consequences of those searches that are impacting people's lives, right? It's hard for police because they do those types of activities all the time, and they don't feel like in their role that it's a big deal. But certainly from the citizen standpoint, it is. And so this feeds into the larger conversation about whether that type of police behavior, given that it might not be yielding as much contraband as we would like, is worth it because of the consequences it has on reducing trust and legitimacy in the eyes of the public. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. Jed, I don't know if you have any other thoughts too.
Absolutely. I would say that's the biggest. And I mean, it might have implications for training and just kind of what you would expect to see with police. There's a good amount of racial sensitivity training that has been rolled out, but much less to do with class. So I think that's something that a lot of people kind of take for granted as a useful indicator.
Yeah, to add to that, I'll also mention, it's when you talk to officers, it's a sensitive topic when you discuss the idea of race influencing their decision making. In some ways, this is a positive finding from a policing standpoint, because it does indeed provide some evidence that there are other factors independent of a person's race or ethnicity that's guiding decisions related to traffic stops. But when you unpack that a little bit more, what that really sheds light on is there's indirect or subconscious kind of mechanisms potentially at play, or indirect influences that officers are using, maybe intentionally or unbeknownst to them, that are associated with race.
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about systemic issues, those are those types of things we're talking about. I think that's useful and can be used as a benefit when having conversations about how to address racial disparities, because you're not alienating officers as much by saying, hey, you're racist, you're taking into account race of driver. It might be other factors, and unbeknownst to you, those are associated with race. Lower income vehicles are associated with race.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I'm really excited about this report, and I hope it leads to some practice changes. It sounds like you've identified some possible next steps. And again, congratulations on the award, and best of luck with the findings going forward.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate it.